Welcome, fellow freaks, geeks, and nostalgic 90s nerds to my channel, Slime and Slashers, where, yeah, we talk about everything from Nickelodeon slime to horror movie slashers, but plenty of stuff in between, like books! Yes, today is a book-themed video. It's also a 2023 themed video, because in this video, I'll be talking about one of my 23 books to read in 2023 list. You might have thought you just misheard me, but no, you are correct. I said one of my 23 books in 2023 list. That means I have two lists of 23 books to read in 2023. One is a list of newer books, and one is a list of vintage books, more like paperbacks from hell type of books that I want to read in 2023. So that's a total of 46 books that I have on my comprehensive list. But today we are going through the newer section of the horror books. So let's go to this short intro, and when we come back, I will tell you guys about the newer horror books that I want to make a priority for next year. Welcome back, guys, and as I said, this is my 23 books to read in 2023. This is the new horror book list that I want to read in 2023. When I say new, I mean newer, not vintage, so not paperbacks from hell. Some of these are not new as in it's not really from the last couple of years, but it is newer or new-ish, if that makes sense. Alright, and I'm not going to go through the synopses of all of these books because that would take forever, so we're just going to quickly talk about them. I might just say the title for some, others I might give a basic premise, and some very few I will read the back of the book or parts of the back of the book. First up, a book I should have read a long time ago, We Sold Our Souls. This is by Grady Hendrix, one of the few I haven't read. I also haven't read Horror Store, even though it was on my 22 books to read in 2022, and yet I still have not read it. So that might also get pushed to next year, but officially this one is on my 23 books for 2023 for sure. I believe this surrounds a broken up rock band, and I think it says it's an epic journey into the heart of conspiracy-crazed, pill-popping, paranoid country that seems to have lost its very soul. So you've got like an occult type of element into this book too. It just seems awesome. I love how the cover of this edition looks like Rolling Stone magazine. Next up, this is a much newer book, and this one was suggested to me by my friend Lexi. Check out her channel, Books with Lexi. So this is The Last Housewife, and this is a lot newer than I usually read. I don't usually read newer books right away. This one just came out not that long ago, and reading it next year, I still won't be reading it right away, right after it was released, but still sooner than I usually get to newer books. So this will be interesting, and it'll be interesting to see if I liked it as much as Lexi did. Next up, a big old freaking tome. I have had this for about a year and a half now. I got it right after it came out. This is by Tim Meyer, and I have liked the other book I have read by Tim Meyer. This specifically is Malignant Summer. I really want to get to it. I want to read it the summer of 2023, and it is a coming-of-age book, and I love coming-of-age horror. It's some of my favorite type of horror that is out there, so going to finally try to get to this. I'm making myself accountable. I love books with supernatural elements or books about possession. This is one of those books. This is a possession story. This is Come Closer by Sarah Gran, not sure which, but I'm really intrigued and I can't wait to get to it. I've waited too long, so I'm gonna rectify that next year, I'm hoping. Next up, I want to read a books by Max Booth III finally. I had a couple of ideas, but I'm going to pick one book of his, even though I think I could enjoy and read many of his books, but I definitely want to get to at least one. If I only get to one, I want it to be We Need to Do Something. So that's the one I'm definitely going to get to no matter what. Of course, I've heard great things about Maggot Screaming, so if I get to that one, great. If I don't, that's okay. It's not technically on my list, because I officially definitely want to get to We Need to Do Something, and eventually I'll get to Maggot Screaming and hopefully other works by Max Booth III. Next one, another one of Lexi's favorite books, and this is just a coincidence that it's on my list. A lot of her favorites are on my list, and that's not on purpose, it just happened to be that way, and how I know that is because I mentioned these books on sprints, how they were on my list, and Lexi's like, that's another one of my favorites, that's a great book. So here's another one, like I said, of her favorites, The Hollow Places by Tim Kingfisher. I really can't wait to read this one. I've already read a book by T. Kingfisher, which was What Moves the Dead. I enjoyed it very much. and The Hollow Places seems like it has a fantasy type of element to it, but that doesn't bother me. Next up, The Troop by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is a rollover from 2022. I had this on a TBR of mine back in February when I was doing a big Carnival Clown amusement park freak show type of readathon, and I just didn't get to it because look how chunky it is. I did read a lot of great books, but I just didn't get to this one because I ran out of time. It's not because I didn't want to get to it at all. I'm making this a priority for next year. That's why it's on this list, so I will finally get to it even though it is chunkier. I have a good mix of chunky books on my list and also novellas, so it's a good mix, I think, where it's doable in my opinion. So this says,
16-year-old pianist George has joined vaudeville for one reason only, to find the man he suspects to be his father, the great Silenus. Yet as he chases down his father's troupe, he begins to understand that their performances are strange even for vaudeville, for wherever they happen to tour, the very nature of the world seems to change. Because there is a secret within Silenus' show, so ancient and dangerous that it has won him many powerful enemies, and it's not until after he joins them that George realizes the troupe is not simply touring, they are running for their lives.
Seems interesting, heard no one talk about it, just found it while researching Carnival, troupe, freak show type of books, and I'm intrigued to see what I think. Next up, Scanlines by Todd Kessling. I have heard fabulous things about this book. It is super dark. Look up trigger warnings if you have not read this, but are intrigued. As you can see by the cover, very graphic stuff. So I'm looking forward to it because I actually read the intro already where Todd talks about what inspired. It's really more of an author's note more than an introduction. What inspired this. Things circulating on the internet that are actually real-life incidents that end up scarring the people who run across them on the dark web. It's essentially super loosely about what this is about, but we will see what it truly is about when I end up reading it next year. A book I have been gifted and I've heard so much about recently, Kill the Babysitter. My friend Elizabeth loves Stephanie Sparks. My friend Kelly has read Stephanie Sparks' books. My friend Amber has read Stephanie Sparks' books. So here's one of Stephanie Sparks' books, finally on my list to make it a priority for next year. This is Kill the Babysitter, and we've got a classic babysitter scenario where the babysitter is probably going to be in danger. From who, I don't really want to know too much. I just want to go in and see what happens. Another quick, easy novella, much like Scanlines. Here is Out Behind the Barn. We've got these two boys, and they're watching Miss Maggie carry a bundle into the barn, the weight of it stooping against her aging back. One of the boys sees an arm fall from the parcel. He smiles. She's got someone. Both children grin and settle back into their beds. This is family growth, they think. So something is amiss with this freaking family, and they're collecting bodies for some reason. And that's all I need to know. It's short and sweet, and I can't wait to see what it's all about. Next up, Horns by Joe Hill. I have read 2 other books by Joe Hill, but that was years ago. I didn't read any Joe Hill this year, the year I'm filming this video in, which is 2022. So I feel like I need to get back on the Joe Hill bandwagon and back on the Joe Hill train, because I have loved the 2 books I've read by him thus far, which was Nosferatu and also Heart-Shaped Box, which I almost couldn't remember the name for a second because it's been so long, it feels like, since I've read it. But Horns, I've heard, is a little more odd than both of those books, so I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen. It's described as a supernatural thriller with a guy who wakes up with horns growing from his head. Why? I guess that'll be explained in the book, and I'm here for strange and unusual Joe Hill, so can't wait. Next up, I want to keep going, making my way through David Sodergren's work, and I've already read 2 books by him. This one is Satan's Burnouts Must Die. Katrina over at the channel Katrina Brown already read this. She loved it. Very fast-paced, very gory and weird, and I'm here for it. Look at this awesome cover, by the way. You can't beat that. He's got some great covers on his books, so yeah, I am excited to get to another Sodergren. My friend Lauren over at the channel Happy Haunts Library, check out her channel. Super underrated, great editing. I love her videos, especially her vlogs. She is such a fun, lovely person, very smart too, and she just recently read this. She did a whole clown vlog where she read clown books, and it was fantastic. I loved it. It was uber thematic to the max. Check it out if you haven't seen it, I will link it below. And I will link everyone's channels that I mentioned below as well. She read Cotton Candy Massacre for that vlog, and this just seems like a blast. You don't need to know much. It probably takes place at a carnival. It probably has cotton candy, and even if that is not the case, I don't care. This cover makes me want to read it so bad, and Lauren had some good things to say about it, so I can't wait to dive in. Another novella to try to get through on my list for next year, Blankie by Keelan Patrick Burke. And the reason I have so many novellas, I'm definitely going to be doing a novella reading vlog. I think that'll be a lot of fun. I know people like Gabby Reeds has done that, and I've loved her novella reading vlog. She did it in like a weekend. I'm going to probably do mine over a whole week because I can't read a ton over one weekend. I can, however, read a good bit in a week, especially if it's shorter books like novella length books. So yeah, Blankie, I've heard that it's pretty sad and kind of deep, and I know my friend Elizabeth loves this, so I can't wait to get to it. I know I keep saying I can't wait, but it's true. I really can't wait to read these books. That's why they're on my list, and that's why they are a priority for me. Coming of age, as I said, I love coming of age horror. This is Midnight Rain. It's a darker type of story. It takes place back in 1977, I believe. And it takes place in a town called Midnight in North Carolina. We follow 12-year-old Kyle Mackey. He couldn't care less about anything that's going on during that year. He has his own problems to deal with as he ventures toward a strange new world called manhood. And he's also dealing with his older brother going away to college. And Kyle visits somewhere called his secret place. And he loves his secret place. However, the feeling is shattered when he goes there and stumbles upon something that proves his favorite spot in the world is neither as private nor as innocent as he once thought. It begins with the naked, battered corpse of a young woman, and standing over her, a man Kyle knows. So this is going to be dark, disturbing, deep, probably sad and morose. And coming of age is just wonderful, and that's why this is on my list. Another novella on my list, Gone to See the Riverman, an extreme horror book that I've heard so much about from so many different people. Gabby Reeds did read this in one of her novella reading vlogs, I believe, or maybe it was just reading your horror book suggestions. Either way, she loved it, and I think I will love it too. I'm no stranger to extreme horror. I know it's super unsettling. I know it's stuck with Katrina. She read it and loved it, and it wasn't a fun experience, but it was a book that makes a lasting impact. And books like that, I think, are important to read. And why read a book that you're going to forget about? Even if it is hard to read. I like reading books that stick with me, even if that's in a disturbing bad way. At least, you know, it leaves me with something to ponder over, you know? Next up, and this is definitely going to be read in October of next year, this is The Ring, and it's something that I've had my eye on forever and have been wanting to read forever, but what I want to do is read the book, which I've never read, and rewatch the movie, which I've seen many times, and then I'll compare and contrast the book with the film, and I think that's going to be a flippin' blast. I'm pumped to do both of those things. I want to see how similar this is to the movie, or if it's completely different. The movie, especially the American adaptation, I've seen both the foreign film and the American adaptation. I love both, but the American version is great. It's one of my favorite horror movies, and it'll be really interesting to see how different or similar it is to the movie, especially the American movie, as I said. Next up, another novella, Crossroads by Laurel Hightower. This is grief horror, and it does include some self-harm from what I understand, so look up trigger warnings or just don't read it if that particularly bothers you. Totally understandable if you don't like that. I've heard it's really sad, really deep, and it's very much like Pet Sematary. And I read Pet Sematary this year and really enjoyed it. I do like grief horror, so that is why it's on my list. Another one of Lexi's favorite books that happens to be on my 23 books to read in 2023 list, Sundial by Catriona Ward. And I think I'm saying that right. Her name is hard for me to pronounce, but almost everything in life is hard for me to pronounce. I'm bad at pronouncing words. Sorry, guys. It is what it is. Anyway, this, I don't want to know too much going in. In fact, I know nothing. The cover was enough for me to want to buy it, and I've already read the book that exploded over BookTube this past year, which was The Last House on Needless Street. It might have even been last year, at the end of last year, that it exploded onto BookTube and Bookstagram. I can't remember, but either way, I read it back in March of 2022, so March of this year, and freaking loved that book, loved it. So I gave it 5 stars. It might end up in my top 10 of the year. I don't know yet because I'm still figuring out what's going to make the list and what's not. I had a lot of great reads this year, but I have high hopes for this because I loved her other books so much. So hopefully this doesn't let me down, and Lexi also likes it, so that gives me a good vibe about it, so we will see. if I love this or what I will feel after I read it. Next up, I'm doing a whole Irish-themed reading vlog, and I believe this is one of the books, and I don't own it, so that is why I'm unsure exactly, and I have not looked up the summary in a while. This one is The God Provides by Thomas R. Clarke. I think it's one of my Irish vlog books, because I think it has something to do with either an Irish author or something with an Irish flair in the actual story itself. So if you're intrigued, go check it out and see if I'm right or wrong, and if my memory is any good or not. But I'm almost 100% positive that is why this is on the list, but I will have a lot more books to read in that vlog besides just that, if that is one of my little Irish horror-themed books. I will have lots of books, and I have a whole list of them, and that's going to be so much fun, and that will be happening during the month of St. Patrick's Day, which of course is in March. So yes, March of 2023, look out. Next, This Thing Between Us, a novel by Gus Moreno, and I've heard fantastic things about this. Not really pure horror, that doesn't bother me. I've heard it's impactful, strange, weird, and the cover sure is weird, but in a very awesome way, and so I am looking forward to this very much. Another one of Lexi's favorite books, but it's a lot of people's favorite books, and currently, as I'm filming this, my friend Amy is reading this, and my friend Katrina is reading this. By the way, check out Amy's channel, Amy Noel Reads. She is also marvelous. Also, my friend Amber, she used to be at Secondhand Reader, but now you could find her on Instagram. I'll link her Instagram below. She loves this book as well. She actually read it before it really started getting a lot of hype just this past year, but Lexi also loves this. It's one of her top favorites of this entire year, and yeah, I need to read this. I'm going to be the last one on earth to have read this, so it is what it is, but at least it's a priority for next year. Next up, I plan to read my first manga. This is Uzumaki, and of course, this is like a story about spirals kind of taking over, and it just is going to be fantastic, I think. I've heard a lot of amazing things, and that makes me extra pumped. It's a new thing for me, so I'm a little kind of nervous, but I don't think I'm going to dislike it, so I'm more excited than nervous. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this is, and I might pair it with some other manga and do like a first time reading manga vlog. I think that could be very interesting and fun, since it's something that I'm just not used to, and you guys can go on the journey with me, the journey of discovery or whatever. So yeah, this will be a good time, and a lot of people I know just have praised this in vlogs, and so it's time for me to check it out, because I have owned this before I even saw other people praising it. So what will I think? You'll have to wait till next year to find out, but at least I'll be getting to it at some point in the near-ish future. Okay guys, those are the 23 books that I want to read in 2023 when it comes to new release horror. Please, if you have read any of these and loved them, let me know. If you've read any of these and hated them, let me know. And let me know also what you plan to read in 2023. Are you excited for the new year? Do you think it's going to surpass, you know, how you felt about your reading year in 2022? Leave any of that below in the comments, and thank you so much for spending your time with me. You guys know it means so, so much to me. It's such a joy to get to hang with you guys and to interact with you guys. That's why I always like when you post comments. But for this time, that is it for me. Till next time, guys, you know what you can do. Keep on killing it. Bye, guys.